My wife texted, "I'm divorcing you. I'm taking the house, the kids, and your car." I replied, "Noted." Then I emailed her lawyer the nanny cam footage of her affair and the audio recordings of her coaching the kids. Her lawyer's urgent settlement offer 10 minutes later. Posted this in a few other subs, but figured this crowd would appreciate the full breakdown of how my soon-to-be ex-wife tried to destroy my life and ended up nuking her own instead. Background first. Married to Linda for 9 years, 2 kids, Emma age 7 and Jake age 5. I'm an electrical engineer for a defense contractor. Good steady income around $120 a year. Linda was a nurse when we met, but quit when Emma was born. Been a stay-at-home mom ever since, which honestly I was fine with. Kids need attention, and daycare costs are insane anyway. Now Linda's always been what you'd call high maintenance. Designer everything. Expensive gym memberships, weekly salon appointments, monthly spa days. The works. I didn't mind supporting that lifestyle as long as she was handling the home front and we weren't going into debt. But about 18 months ago, things started changing. Linda got involved with this group of divorced women from her yoga studio. Real toxic crowd. Always talking about how their ex-husbands were controlling losers who held them back from their true potential. How they deserved better treatment and bigger divorce settlements. Linda started parroting their talking points. Suddenly I was emotionally unavailable. I didn't appreciate her sacrifices. I was using financial control to manipulate her. All this therapy speak she'd never used before. I tried addressing it directly. Asked if she was unhappy with our marriage. If there were specific things she wanted to change, she'd flip it back on me. Said the fact that I was questioning her feelings proved how dismissive I was of her emotional needs. Classic gaslighting stuff, but I didn't recognize it at the time. Around the same time, she started getting secretive with her phone, taking it everywhere, keeping it face down during dinner, getting irritated if I walked by while she was texting. When I mentioned it, she said I was being paranoid and controlling. Then came the accusations about the kids. Linda started claiming I was too strict with them, that I was damaging their self-esteem with my expectations, that they were scared of disappointing daddy and it was affecting their emotional development. This was complete nonsense. I've always been involved with Emma and Jake. I coach Jake's little league team. I help Emma with her homework every night. We do science projects together on weekends. The kids and I have a great relationship, but Linda kept pushing this narrative. She'd bring up incidents where I'd supposedly been too harsh. Like the time I told Emma she couldn't have ice cream until she finished her vegetables. Or when I made Jake apologize for hitting his sister. Normal parenting stuff that she was reframing as emotional abuse. I started recording our conversations about the kids. Our state is a one-party consent state, so I could legally record conversations I was part of. Just to have accurate records of what was actually said, because she'd constantly misrepresent our discussions later. Linda would claim I agreed to things I never agreed to, or that I'd said things I never said. Having recordings helped me keep track of reality when she was constantly trying to rewrite history. The recording setup expanded after a particularly nasty fight about discipline. Linda accused me of screaming at Jake over homework when I'd actually just asked him to focus. She was so convincing in her outrage that I started doubting my own memory. That's when I decided to document everything. Voice-activated recorders in common areas. Nanny cams in the kids' rooms and playroom. Not to spy on Linda initially. Just to have objective records of interactions with the kids in case this co-parenting narrative continued escalating. Good thing I did because it escalated fast. About 6 months ago, Linda started having emergencies that required me to watch the kids on short notice. Suddenly, her book club was running late. Her yoga class got extended. Her mom needed help with something urgent, always apologetic about the timing, but somehow these emergencies happened every time I had plans. I didn't mind adjusting my schedule for legitimate emergencies, but the pattern was suspicious, especially since Linda never had details about these situations when I asked follow-up questions. The nanny cam started picking up interesting footage during these emergency absences. Linda would drop the kids off at her sister's house, then disappear for hours. She'd come home looking like she'd been somewhere nice, hair freshly styled, makeup touched up, different clothes than when she left. When I'd ask how her mom was doing or how book club went, she'd give vague answers. Tired, ran long, nothing interesting to report. But the timestamps on the cameras showed she'd only been home 20 minutes when these activities supposedly ended hours ago. I started tracking her location through Find My iPhone. I know some people think that's invasive, but we'd both agreed to share locations for safety after a friend of ours got in a car accident. Linda knew I could see her location just like I could see hers. The location data told the story. During her emergencies, Linda was spending time at this apartment complex across town. Same building every time, usually 2 to 3 hours at a stretch. I did some digging and found out the complex was where Brad Morrison lived. Brad's this divorced dad from Jake's Little League team, recently separated from his wife after she caught him cheating. Real smooth talker, always flirting with the moms during games. Now I had a timeline and a location, but I needed proof. So I started being more strategic about the recording setup. I put a voice-activated recorder in Linda's car. Since it's a one-party consent state and my name is on the registration, I was within my legal rights. I wanted to know what conversations she was having during these mysterious trips. The car recordings were enlightening. Phone calls with Brad talking about when they could meet up, discussions about hotels versus his apartment, complaints about having to make excuses to get away from me and the kids. But the really damaging stuff was what she said about me and the children. Linda was telling Brad that I was an absent father who ignored the kids unless she forced me to interact with them. That Emma and Jake were scared of me because I had anger management issues. That she was documenting my behavior to build a custody case. None of this was true, but she was saying it with such conviction that Brad was giving her advice on divorce lawyers and custody strategies. The worst part was hearing her coach the kids. I'd suspected something was off about their recent behavior around me, but the recordings confirmed it. Linda would wait until I was at work, then sit down with Emma and Jake for what she called feeling talks. She'd ask leading questions about times Daddy had been mean to them, about whether they felt safe when Mommy wasn't around. If they said everything was fine, she'd redirect. But remember when Daddy raised his voice about your room being messy? How did that make you feel? She'd keep pushing until they gave her the emotional response she wanted. Even worse, she was teaching them to repeat simple phrases when asked about Daddy. Daddy was mean. I don't like when Daddy yells. Mommy is nice to me. Simple statements that young kids could remember and repeat. She was literally training my children to give negative responses about me to support her custody case. I documented everything. Timestamps, audio files, video footage, built a comprehensive record of Linda's affair and her manipulation of the kids. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd take this before showing my hand. The answer was pretty far. 2 weeks ago, Linda announced she was taking the kids to visit her sister for a long weekend. Said they needed some quality time with their aunt and cousins. I thought it was a good idea. The kids love their cousins, and Linda had been stressed lately. Except the location tracking showed she never went to her sister's house. She spent the weekend at a resort 2 hours away, where Brad was also staying, based on his social media posts. She dropped the kids off with her sister Friday morning, told them Mommy had errands to run, then disappeared until Sunday afternoon to pick them up. When they got back on Sunday, the kids were acting weird. Clingy with Linda. Distant with me. Emma wouldn't make eye contact during dinner. Jake kept asking if Daddy was mad at them. That night, after the kids were in bed, Linda sat me down for a conversation. She said the weekend had been enlightening. That Emma and Jake had opened up about feeling uncomfortable at home. That they'd expressed concerns about my parenting style. She had notes, specific quotes supposedly from the kids about incidents I didn't remember. Times I'd allegedly made them cry. Occasions when they'd felt unsafe because of my temper. I asked to talk to the kids directly about these concerns. Linda said that would be traumatic for them. That they needed space to process their feelings before having difficult conversations with me. Red flags everywhere, but I played along. Asked what she thought we should do to address the kids' concerns. That's when Linda showed her cards. She said maybe we needed to consider separation. that the kids might benefit from some time away from the tension at home. She'd already talked to a lawyer about custody arrangements that would prioritize the children's emotional well-being. I told her I thought we should try counseling first. Both couples therapy and family therapy to work through whatever issues the kids were experiencing. Linda said she wasn't interested in counseling, that she'd already made up her mind about what was best for our family. I asked if there was someone else, if her decision to leave was motivated by wanting to be with another person. She looked me right in the eye and said no, said this was about protecting herself and the children from an unhealthy environment. The audacity was incredible. She was gaslighting me while planning to take my kids based on lies she'd coached them to tell. But I still didn't reveal what I knew. I wanted her to commit fully to her plan before exposing the truth. Last Monday I got the text that ended our marriage. I'm divorcing you. I'm taking the house, the kids, and your car. Don't try to contact me directly. All communication goes through my lawyer from now on. Linda. Just like that. 9 years of marriage ended with a text message full of demands. I replied exactly what the title says. Noted. Then I got to work. First I called my own lawyer, guy named Robert Chen, who specializes in high-conflict custody cases. Expensive, but worth every penny. I'd already consulted with him months ago when Linda's behavior started escalating, so he was familiar with the situation. I sent Robert everything: audio files, video footage, location data, text message screenshots, bank records showing charges at hotels during Linda's alleged emergencies. The whole comprehensive file I'd been building. Robert reviewed everything and confirmed what I already knew. Linda had torpedoed her own custody case with the coaching recordings. Family courts don't look kindly on parental alienation, especially when there's clear audio evidence of a parent manipulating children to lie about abuse. But Robert wanted to go further. He suggested we also gather evidence of Linda's affair for the divorce proceedings. Adultery affects property division in our state. If we could prove she'd been unfaithful while using marital assets to fund the relationship, it would impact her claims on the house and other assets. I already had most of what we needed. Location data, hotel receipts, phone records, photos from Brad's social media showing them together at restaurants I'd never been to. But Robert wanted something definitive, something that would be undeniable in court. That's where Linda's own digital trail came in handy. She'd been careless with her phone and computer. Text messages talking about meeting Brad. Calendar entries for appointments that lined up with her location data. Even photos she'd taken at restaurants and hotels with Brad that she'd forgotten to delete. Most damaging was a series of emails she'd sent to her divorce lawyer friend asking for advice on maximizing custody and asset claims. The emails detailed her strategy of documenting false abuse incidents and coaching the kids to support her narrative. She'd basically confessed her entire plan in writing. Robert prepared a comprehensive evidence package, affair documentation, parental alienation recordings, financial records showing Linda's misuse of marital funds, character witness statements from neighbors and the kids' teachers who could testify about my relationship with Emma and Jake. Then Robert reached out to Linda's lawyer. Linda had hired this woman named Patricia Hoffman, known for aggressive tactics and maximizing settlements for female clients. Probably cost Linda a fortune in retainer fees based on her reputation. Robert's initial contact was professional. Just a courtesy call to introduce himself and discuss discovery timelines. No mention of our evidence. Patricia immediately came out swinging, demanded that I move out of the family home immediately. Insisted that all visitation with the kids be supervised until a custody evaluation could be completed. Made it clear they were planning to portray me as an unfit father with anger issues. Robert listened politely, then asked if Patricia might want to review some evidence before filing formal motions. Patricia said she wasn't interested in whatever character witnesses or financial records we thought were relevant. That family court was about protecting children, not relitigating marital grievances. That's when Robert dropped the first bomb. He mentioned we had audio recordings of Linda coaching the kids to make false statements about abuse, that we could prove she'd been manipulating them to support her custody claims. Patricia's tone changed immediately. She asked for specifics about the recordings, when they were made, what exactly Linda had said. Robert provided a few sample quotes, nothing too detailed, but enough to show we had genuine evidence of parental alienation. Patricia asked for time to review the materials with her client before proceeding with any formal filings. Robert agreed, but mentioned we also had evidence relevant to property division. That Linda's claims about deserving the house might be complicated by other factors. When Patricia asked what kind of factors, Robert said we had documented proof of adultery during the marriage, including intimate encounters in the family home, using marital assets to fund the affair. The line went quiet for almost 30 seconds. Patricia asked if we'd be willing to discuss settlement options before involving the court system. Robert said we were always open to reasonable discussions that prioritized the children's best interests. They scheduled a call for the next day to review our evidence and discuss terms. That was Tuesday afternoon. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone was periodically blowing up with calls from Linda. I didn't answer. Let them all go to voicemail. The messages started panicked and got progressively more desperate over the following days. Linda crying about how she'd made a mistake, how we could work things out if I just talked to her, how the kids needed both their parents. After a week, she was begging me to call off the lawyers, promising she'd go to counseling, saying she'd do anything to save our marriage. Too little, too late. 2 weeks after the initial lawyer contact, Patricia called Robert with what she described as an urgent settlement proposal. Linda would accept a 50-50 custody split with no restrictions on my parenting time. She'd move out of the family home and take only her personal belongings. She'd waive any claim to alimony or spousal support. She'd accept a minimal property settlement that basically amounted to half the value of her car and her personal jewelry. In exchange, we'd agree not to introduce evidence of adultery or parental alienation in court proceedings. All custody and property issues would be resolved through private mediation rather than public trial. Robert said he'd discuss the offer with his client and get back to her. When Robert called me with Patricia's proposal, I almost laughed. Linda had gone from demanding everything to accepting essentially nothing in the span of 48 hours. But I wasn't interested in being generous, not after what she'd put me and the kids through. I told Robert I wanted primary custody, with Linda getting supervised visitation until she completed parenting classes and individual therapy. I wanted the house and all marital assets except for Linda's personal items and half the value of one car. Most importantly, I wanted Linda to sign a detailed admission of her coaching behavior and agree to immediate therapy for both kids to address the damage she'd caused. Robert thought my counterproposal was harsh, but legally defensible given our evidence. He called Patricia the following Monday with our terms. Patricia tried to negotiate, but Robert was clear. These were our final terms. If Linda didn't accept them, we'd proceed with a contested divorce and full custody battle where all our evidence would become public record, including the email confessions. Patricia asked for time to discuss the terms with her client. That Wednesday, Patricia called back accepting our complete proposal. Linda signed the initial agreements Friday morning. The formal custody arrangement would take another few weeks to finalize through the court system, but the temporary custody order gave me primary physical custody immediately. She moved out of the house that weekend while I took the kids to my parents. Her sister came with a moving truck to collect her belongings. By Sunday evening, the immediate transition was complete. The kids asked where Mommy went. I told them she was going to live in a different house for a while, but they'd still get to see her regularly. That sometimes families need to make changes, but it doesn't mean anyone loves them less. Emma asked if it was because they'd been bad. That broke my heart because it showed how much Linda's coaching had messed with their heads. I assured both kids that nothing was their fault, that Mommy and Daddy both loved them very much, but sometimes grown-ups need to live separately, that we'd all work together to make sure they felt safe and loved, no matter what. The first supervised visit happened 3 weeks later, after the court had time to process the temporary orders and arrange proper supervision. Court-appointed supervisor at a family center downtown. Linda tried to act like nothing had changed, but the kids were confused and distant. Emma kept asking why someone else was watching them play with Mommy. Jake wanted to know when they could come home with me. Linda's going to have to rebuild those relationships from scratch. And she's going to have to do it while dealing with the consequences of her choices. Brad dumped her as soon as word got around about the divorce proceedings. Apparently, he wasn't interested in being with someone who came with this much legal drama. So much for true love. Linda's moved into a studio apartment across town. Her sister's been helping with basic furniture and necessities. From what I hear, she's struggling financially without access to our joint accounts. She started therapy, but from the kids' reports, she spends most of their supervised visits complaining about how unfair everything is. How Daddy tricked her with hidden cameras. How the system is biased against women. Zero accountability for her own choices. The kids are doing better, though. Emma's back to her normal, cheerful self. Jake's sleeping through the night again. Both of them seem relieved to be living in a stable environment without the constant tension. We've started family therapy to address any lingering effects from Linda's coaching. The therapist says kids are remarkably resilient when they feel secure. That the most important thing is maintaining consistent routines and clear communication. I've been completely honest with Emma and Jake about the changes in our family. Age-appropriate but honest. They know Mommy made some poor choices that hurt our family. That she's working on becoming a better person, but it's going to take time. They also know that none of this was their fault, and that both parents love them even when we can't live together. The legal situation is almost wrapped up. Divorce should be finalized within the next 2 months. Custody arrangement is working smoothly. Property division will be complete once all the paperwork goes through. Robert says Linda's lawyer bill was probably north of $50,000 for a case that lasted less than 2 weeks. Patricia billed premium rates for what ended up being a complete surrender. My legal costs were substantial too, but worth every penny for the peace of mind. The best part is having my kids back. Emma's volunteering to help with dinner again. Jake's asking me to read bedtime stories. They're both excited about the science fair project we're planning for school. It's like getting my family back after months of walking on eggshells around Linda's manipulation. Looking back, I can see all the signs I missed or rationalized away. The secretive behavior. The constant reframing of normal interactions as problematic. The systematic attempt to alienate me from my own children. Linda had probably been planning this divorce for months while I was trying to save our marriage. The affair was just the icing on the cake. She'd already decided to destroy our family and take everything she could in the process. What she didn't count on was me being smart enough to document her behavior. Most guys in my situation would have been blindsided by the false accusations in coach testimony. By the time they figured out what was happening, their kids would already be traumatized, and their reputation would be destroyed. I got lucky that I recognized the gaslighting early enough to start gathering evidence. Without those recordings and camera footage, this could have gone very differently. The key lesson is trust your instincts when someone's behavior doesn't match their words. If your partner is constantly rewriting history or making you question your own memory, start documenting everything. And if you have kids, protect them first. Document any coaching or manipulation immediately. Family courts take parental alienation seriously when there's clear evidence. Linda thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Turns out I was playing chess too. I just didn't show my pieces until the game was already over. She gambled everything on a strategy that depended on me being passive and naive. When that assumption proved wrong, her entire plan collapsed. Now she gets to live with the consequences while I rebuild my life with my children. Honestly, couldn't have worked out better if I'd planned it myself. The only thing I regret is not recognizing Linda's true character sooner. Could have saved everyone a lot of pain if I'd addressed the red flags when they first appeared. But sometimes people show you who they really are gradually. The mask slips a little at a time until suddenly you're looking at a stranger who happens to share your last name. Linda became someone I didn't recognize over those 18 months. Or maybe she was always that person, and I was just seeing what I wanted to see. Either way, the kids and I are better off without that toxicity in our daily lives. Linda can work on herself during her supervised visits and maybe eventually earn back some trust. But the days of her manipulating my children to hurt me are over. That protection alone makes everything else worth it.